Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed we do. We've got Matt Carpon from Jacobin. He's talking about, no, Joe Biden is not bringing social democracy. Everybody calm down. We've got Ryan Grimm on. He's got some insights into which politicians dropped their support of Medicare for All and why. But we wanted to start with some big breaking news about Joe Biden's next plans in terms of not just economic relief, but I guess this is the Build Back Better part of the equation.
This is the long-promised infrastructure week of 5 years. It's finally here.
It's here.
It's actually not, but this is what was leaked to the New York Times, that the advisors are pulling together what they are saying is a $3 trillion package to reduce carbon emissions, narrow economic inequality, beginning with a giant infrastructure plan, which would be financed in part through taxes increases on corporations and the rich. So this is a spending proposal that the Biden team has been putting together as their follow-on from the COVID relief bill. However, they are going to run into several snags. So if in terms of what's actually inside the bill, our friend Jeff Stein, he has this tweet. Let's put it up there on the screen. It's infrastructure and clean energy, roads, highway, bridges, charging stations, green R&D. I think $200 billion there for housing, a care economy, so pre-K, childcare, community college, etc. Look, it's largely a wish list, and I think that what really matters here is talking about the real political implications, which is that $3 trillion is obviously, it's a lot, depending on how you look at it, maybe not even be enough. And the real issue, though, is going to be on financing and on the 60-vote threshold in the Senate. So Republicans basically, and this even happened under Trump, when Trump proposed a deficit-financed infrastructure plan, Mitch McConnell and many of the others said absolutely not. And then they tried to settle on some fake version, and it just never went anywhere, obviously, which is why Infrastructure Week became a joke. Here, they have to grapple with the conservative members of the Senate Democratic Caucus. So you've got Angus King, Joe Manchin, and John Tester all saying they will not vote for a deficit-financed version of this plan. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say they probably don't support taxes on corporations or on the rich, at least to the extent that it would need to pay for this entire thing. So it's going to be very hard to reach a 60-vote threshold in the Senate for this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be hard.
Right.
It's going to be impossible. That's never going to happen.
Okay, yeah,
There's no way you're going to get 60 votes on any of this. Think about it. Like you said, if Trump tried to get infrastructure and couldn't even get Republicans on board, you really think they're going to go along with Joe Biden? No, of course they're not. So the idea, and again, this is still being worked out. They haven't officially released any of the details, either with regards to the bills themselves or how they plan to go about achieving these ends. But the idea that's being sketched down here is they're going to divide this into two pieces. So you've got the infrastructure piece, and the talk is financing that, at least in part, through increasing taxes on the affluent, people who make over $400,000 a year. That was Biden's promise. Remember on the campaign trail, different, moving it up from Hillary Clinton, who said over $250,000 a year.
And Obama,
But the fact that they're planning to finance it through tax increases at all immediately means that even if you had a Republican negotiating in good faith, which you don't, but even if you did, they would immediately be out just on the premise of we're not voting for any tax increases. So even for the least controversial part, which is the infrastructure, you're not going to get a single Republican on board. Right. With the other pieces, which I think are really important, very significant, the big idea behind the CARE plan is to, now I hate, that's too similar to the CARES Act. Anyway, the CARE piece of this would make pre-K universal and would also make free community college. So the big idea here is extending basically guaranteed education from the age of 3 up until 2 years past high school. This part is also going to get even, like the other part's already getting no Republican support. This one will get negative Republican support, and I think you'll have a hard time keeping the Democrats in line on
especially community college.
On the CARE piece. Yeah. It's a bigger spend. It's a bigger expansion. Its infrastructure is so popular. I think these pieces, by the way, are also wildly popular. I think everything that I've mentioned so far, if you go out and poll it, would be extraordinarily popular with the American people. So, and let's go ahead and put Jen Psaki up here. This is the official, response to all of this. Talking about these plans, she says the focus is going to be on jobs, making life better for Americans, considering a range of options, scopes, and sizes of plans. We'll discuss with his policy team in days ahead, but speculation is premature given POTUS does not plan to lay on additional details this week. But clearly someone in their shop is leaking these details out to kind of test them out with the American people, see what the political response is, and move forward from there. So really, as you were alluding to, the big question is how are you going to push these pieces forward? If you go through regular order, that's it, you're done.
Yeah.
100% not happening either piece. If you go through reconciliation, which I think in particular the infrastructure piece
that it might work.
Could work through reconciliation, but you've already had Manchin out saying that he's not voting for another big plan through reconciliation that doesn't involve Republican support. Does he stick to that? We don't know. But that's the only way, without ditching the filibuster, which they seem unlikely to do, that you're going to move either of these pieces of legislation. So again, if I had to handicap it, the only one that has even a slight prayer of package is the infrastructure plan. Even there, I'm skeptical. The pre-K and the free community college piece, I think, totally off the table. The other part that it's worth mentioning in that second package, so we've been hearing all along that the provisions in the relief bill regarding the child tax credit and the additional ACA subsidies, which make healthcare a lot more affordable for more people, that Democrats were going to make those permanent. That's what we've been told from the beginning. So yes, they're temporary in the relief bill, but we promise we're going to make these permanent. Those two pieces are put into this care bill, which again, I have no idea what sort of magic they would intend to get this thing passed, short of getting rid of the filibuster, which again, so far they have zero willingness to do.
Yeah, that's right. It's interesting, so last night apparently Biden spoke with the Senate Democratic Caucus and he was pressed on filibuster by some people. And apparently he still maintained, he's like, look, we have to be able to get GOP votes. I do think there is a world where you could pass a semi-bipartisan infrastructure plan, but it would just take a lot of haggling. It wouldn't be nearly as big as we wanted it to be, but it is possible. Now, I just don't know what the Biden team is willing to go and give on, because like I said, there's actually a big divide, and it seems to be between majority of the Senate Democratic Caucus and then Republican-ish people like Lindsey Graham and others are okay with deficit spending, but are going to have all sorts of corporate concerns. I think they're actually very much aligned with the John Testers of the world, with the Joe Manchins of the world, the Angus Kings and others in terms of the type of tax increases that you would want to see. But it's going to be hard. I just don't see a world where they could probably get the 60-vote threshold to actually come together. And even with Joe Manchin, he said the 60-vote threshold is staying no matter what, even if you bring a talking filibuster back. It doesn't really matter, because if cloture stands, then cloture is everything. And you can see that the way that this is moving forward and more, I basically think our prediction after the second COVID relief bill pass, this is probably the high water mark of the Biden presidency stands. There is just simply no political reality in which this thing comes together, especially with the strategy that the White House is laying out, with the stipulations that Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema have put into place, and Dianne Feinstein. People forget, Dianne Feinstein has said that as well, many other members of the Senate Democratic Caucus. So I think that was it. I think that's as big as it's going to be in terms of reconciliation. Even then, Joe Manchin says he's not going to vote for something. John Tester and Angus King won't vote for something unless there's a tax increase on it, and then they're not going to agree with many of the tax increases that their colleagues support. I don't see the votes here, even for reconciliation.
You've got to catch-22 because Republicans are going to object if you finance it through deficit spending, and they're also going to object if you finance it through any tax increase.
Which is what Mitch McConnell said here. He said we have no appetite for a tax increase.
Yeah. So, look, they have no interest in giving – the bottom line is they have no interest in giving Joe Biden a political win.
Correct.
When they already see the things he's done are popular – they widely recognize, as we've covered here, their effort to demonize the relief bill was utterly pathetic. It has majority support, even among Republicans. So what he's done so far has been popular. This bill also, again, the provisions are going to be really popular, but I think they're going to be adamant about blocking him from accomplishing absolutely anything else if they can. And again, with the talking filibuster, let's say they even, which still kind of feels a little bit like a long shot, even if they institute this reform of you got to hold the floor, et cetera. At the end of that process, you still got to get 60 votes.
Yeah, exactly.
So
people don't seem to understand that.
You don't think that you're going to have Republicans who take the opportunity to hold the floor and rail against tax increases and socialism or whatever it is that they wanted to Dr. Seuss or whatever it is that they feel like talking about that
what
day.
You're really asking for is the Rand Paul show, which nobody wants. I can guarantee you that.
You are so correct about that. He will be delighted to be on that floor day and night. So, and especially when you're talking about, these big pieces of legislation coming in chunks, they will 100% mobilize against this. So, look, if they push it through reconciliation, you could see having some shot of getting the infrastructure bill passed, but that would require Manchin changing his mind about how he wants to see that process move forward. The last piece that I think this is actually a really good point from Sunrise Movement, they mentioned, hey, Joe Manchin had actually floated $4 trillion in infrastructure spending alone, just in infrastructure. $3 trillion is not enough, is their point, when even the most right-wing Democrat had floated $4 trillion, which I think is actually a really good point, just to show you kind of where the landscape is and where the Biden team is landing within that realm of political possibility. But look, bottom line is until they change the filibuster, or if they can convince Manchin to move on how he was thinking about reconciliation, then you're kind of stuck on these proposals.
And like I said, even if they do that, then they have to agree on the tax increases. And like, if you really think if Joe Manchin and John Tester are gonna allow taxes on like oil and gas, get out of here.
All right. We're gonna tell you what's on our radars. That's next.